Ghost University. I have some articles that I was going to read about why we should or perhaps should not trust the professionals to tell us things. And I'll be one to for sure say, I'm not saying we don't trust professionals in each and every instance, but I would go so far as to say that if the professionals are paid by the government to do research and exams upon us or the rest of the world, I wouldn't necessarily trust it to be true. From the Smithsonian Magazine, it says, why experts are almost always wrong. No one, not even the experts, really know what's about to happen. Which is really bizarre because I just thought we were supposed to trust these experts because they'll come on TV and people will say, the reporter will say, well, they have a report from an expert and the expert will give us the answers to whatever problem the news said we should be trying to solve. But perhaps it's just not that easy. So reading on. Every time there's a national disaster, a gigantic event, a shooting, a breakthrough, really, any news at all, you can rely on television news to find an expert. Some of them know quite a lot about what happened, what will happen, and why. But when it comes to a lot of experts, they really have no idea what they're talking about. The average expert overconflates things and will make everybody else overconflate as well. So one person says, yeah, they had this guy on TV the other night, this doctor, this whoever, he was a specialist in whatever field he comes from, right? And so everybody believes him. But what if he isn't really telling the truth? Where do we put him at? Where do we classify their information? If people are just found out to be lying. Blogger Eric Barker points out that political experts' predictions are only slightly better than a random guess. Everybody who says Biden's winning, Trump's winning, Hillary's winning, Bush is winning, Reagan's winning, Carter's winning, Eisenhower, back down the line somewhere, that they're winning, perhaps they don't know anything at all. It says predictions are only slightly better than a random guess and way worse than a statistical model. But that's a statistical model that actually works. So the average person, expert, that they put out here in front of you, they're wrong. And they're way worse than a statistical model because at least the model has some math behind it. Or at least math that we hope will work. Maybe the math doesn't work at all. And that's another problem with listening to these experts. Does the math work? Does the statistical model work? Most of the times, probably not. Reading on. In fact, so-called experts were better at predicting events outside their own field. Barker points to a study from the 1980s when Philip Tetlock had 284 political experts make about 100 predictions. The study is summarized in the book Everything is Obvious Once You Know the Answer. What a funny title to name your book after. Let me say it again. The name of his book is From Philip Tetlock, 284 Political Experts Make About 100 Predictions. The study is summarized in the book. Everything is obvious once you know the answer. Why? It's because they've allowed the models to give them the answer. It's not, I don't have to read the book. It's on the title. The title tells me that experts make mistakes. And they're going to make a lot of them. And it says, Everybody knows. Once you know, they answer. Of course they do. Because everybody has played into what the answer is going to be. And we're all going to believe. And once we all believe in who is going to go against the mass of society, once you go against the mass of society, now you allegedly could be some type of idiot because you're not going along with what everybody else seems to think. And that's the problem. You go along with what everybody else seems to think. There's no knowing, there's no real knowledge behind these things for the most part, especially since 2014. I would go back there. But there's no real knowledge. Don't look for it. Go back and read articles from 1960 and before, and you'll find more knowledge to help you in your life. Who's really reading 19 articles from 1960 and before? Well, pretty much nobody. Let's continue the reading. For each of these predictions, Tetlock insisted that the experts specify which of the two outcomes they expected and also assign a probability to their prediction. Let's get down to the math. Put some numbers to it. Put your money where your mouth is. Is it 1 out of 2? Is it 2 out of 3? Is it 3 out of 4? Is it 4 out of 4? Is it 10 out of 10? Where are we going with these numbers that you guys are assigning to these outcomes? He did so in a way that confident predictions scored more points when correct, but also lost more points when mistaken. With those predictions in hand, he then sat back and waited for the events themselves to play out. 20 years later, he had to wait for the outcome to become apparent. 20 years later, he published his results. And what he found was, strikingly, although the experts performed slightly better than random guessing, they did not perform as well as even a minimal, sophisticated statistical model, a model that is brought under real scrutiny works. These people in today's day and age, they're not making that. They're giving you the worst of the worst. The worst probabilities of the worst probabilities is what they want to tell you is going to happen to the people in the planet when dealing with global warming, food shortage, whatever it is. They're giving you the worst of the worst. And that's why he said they did not perform as well as even a minimal, the smallest amount of mathematical data that you could put together. Sophisticated statistical model. And it goes on to say, even more surprisingly, the experts did slightly better when operating outside their area of expertise than within it. Another study found that experts who try to predict the outcome of Supreme Court cases weren't that much better than a computer. The world saw evidence of that in their recent decision about healthcare. Surprisingly, the expert out there. The part that trips me out is when it says that their predictions, the expert predictions, weren't any better than that of a computer. Maybe that's why they say that they're going to get rid of lawyers in the future, or paralegals, and perhaps even some nurses and some other people that they claim that they're going to get rid of, thanks to algorithms and AI. Like the computers are just going to be so much better than the people will. But that's politics. Other fields should be better, right? Nope. Technology is the same way. Another scientist analyzed the accuracy of technology trend predictions. About 80% of them were wrong, regardless of whether those predictions were made by experts or not. So that it's even hard to predict what technology is going to fail or stay. Is really, what that little paragraph there is talking about. Again, it's just hard to predict trends of people in the world. I mean, how do you know when they're really going to get tired of the the current piece of technology that they're using, compared to trying to give them a new one? And like people say, oftentimes the old thing work better than the new thing does. In 2005, Tetlock wrote a book about expert prediction called Expert Political Judgment. How good is it? How can we know? In it, he explains that not only are experts often wrong, but they nearly never get called out on it. The New Yorker explains, when they're wrong, they're rarely held accountable, and they rarely admit it either. They insist that they were just off on timing or blindsided by an improbable event, or almost right or wrong for the right reasons. They have the same repertoire of self justification that everyone has, and are no more inclined than anyone else to revise their beliefs about the way the world works or ought to work just because they made a mistake. Right. You know, in the Bible, if you're wrong about prophecy, then you're just not to be trusted. Period. One mistake in something you predict or prophesize, and you're not a prophet. So these people aren't prophets. Let's stop looking at them like they just know everything and they can predict everything, although they claim to know a lot about it. Because they're just going to be wrong. I'm going to show in the videos that I have how people aren't held accountable, and oftentimes they say, we, use the best science we had at the time. Well, that's just not going to be good enough when you have people relying on you for your advice, and then you're just wrong and things go haywire because people listen to all the experts in the country or around the world. Tetlock points out that while we're terrible at predictions, experts fall into two cognitive styles when they're making those predictions: foxes and hedgehogs. The Huffington Post summarizes. Foxes know many things, while hedgehogs know one big thing. Being deeply knowledgeable on one subject narrows one's focus and increases confidence, but it also blurs dissenting views until they are no longer visible, thereby transforming data collection into biased confirmation and morphing self-deception into self-assurance. The world is a messy, complex, and contingent place with countless intervening variables and confounding factors, which foxes are comfortable with, but hedgehogs are not. Low scores in Tetlock's study were thinkers who know one big thing, aggressively extend the explanatory reach of that one big thing into new domains, display briskly impatience with those who do not get it, and express considerable confidence that they are already pretty proficient forecasters. By contrast, says Tetlock, high scores were thinkers who know many small things, tricks of their trade, are skeptical of ground schemes, see explanation and predictions not as deductive exercises, but rather as exercises in flexible ad hocery that require sticking together diverse sources of information, and are rather defendant about their own forecasting prowess. But what about the 10,000 hours technique? Did you really just spend 10,000 hours in order to have only a slightly better than random chance at predicting the outcome of your chosen field? Probably. Barker cites another book, Talent is Overrated: What Really Separates World-Class Performers from Everybody Else. Extensive research in a wide range of fields shows that many people not only fail to become outstandingly good at what they do, no matter how many years they spend doing it, they frequently don't even get any better than they were when they started. In field after field, when it came to centrally important skills, stockbrokers recommending stocks, parole officers predicting recidivism, college admissions officials judging applicants, people with lots of experience were no better at their jobs than those with very little experience. The moral here, we really have no idea what's going to happen here, ever.
what's going to happen here ever. We really have no idea.